Hello, this is Ryan Smith. This is ModX Network Voices. This is where we have experts come on and talk about their projects or their experience in the offsite modular construction industry. I am joined today by Rhys Kane, and Rhys is with Horizon North in Calgary. Horizon North is a growing modular company with some acquisitions recently. He's going to talk a little bit about the company and what they're working on, but in specific, today's session is to focus on affordable housing and what is going on in Canada with regards to affordable housing, and Rhys and his company as they're reaching into the United States to also impact the affordable housing market here in the US. So want to welcome Rhys. Rhys, welcome. You say hello to everyone.
Hey Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for having us on here today. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. Had an opportunity to meet Joe Kiss, who's also with Horizon North, and some other folks over the years. A great company. We also talked with Laurie Robert at NRB. They were acquired by Horizon North, I think, a couple years ago. So growing company, innovative company. Rhys, we'd like to invite you to introduce yourself and share your screen, talk a little bit, and then we'll do a Q&A session about what you guys are working on in affordable housing.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've been involved in modular for about 6 years now, primarily in permanent modular, commercial, and it's really growing, and a big wave of interest in modular this last few years. I've been involved in steel modular, container-based modular, and right now primarily wood frame modular projects. So it's I've got an interesting and broad experience in what we're doing. So today, like you mentioned, I'm going to talk mostly about the affordable housing side of what modular construction can do in the industry.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for joining.
Okay, so just as a bit of an intro, we're going to talk about a little bit about our Horizon North and NRB. And then the slides will mostly focus on the experience with affordable housing here in Canada. So yeah, Horizon North, NRB, largest modular company in Canada with facilities across the country, 2 in the west and 1 in the east. Kamloops, Calgary, and Grimsby out in Ontario. Grimsby is the NRB facility, recently acquired. So what we do, Horizon North NRB, we produce projects across Canada and the United States, close to 300,000 square feet of state-of-the-art modular manufacturing space. We've got a rigorously checked industry-leading QA/QC program, and the broadest portfolio of modular solutions in the industry, including multifamily, hotels, affordable seniors workforce, student housing, and a lot of commercial projects. We have significant capacity and resources and a track record of project delivery. And we're a large company based on the Toronto Stock Exchange, partnership with Dexterra. So strong financial strength and a large bonding capacity. That's a very important part of the modular puzzle right now. Yeah. Little snapshot here of some of the projects that we've been involved with. Everything from like I say, residential, hotels, commercial, quick service restaurants. A very broad portfolio of experience for sure.
Right now, Rhys, you have 2 manufacturing sites, the one in Calgary and one in Grimsby. Is that right?
Yeah, well, 3 actually, 2 in the west. So we got Kamloops in BC, Calgary in Alberta, and then 1 in Grimsby, Ontario. So 3 total. And what we're talking about here, I know there's offsite in general, but we are a volumetric modular construction company. So we're building full volumetric boxes in the factory, and we are a company that likes to complete the modules to as far as we possibly can. So when we're working through design development, we really push to get as much completed in the factory as possible. So in parallel, the site works are being complete. We're building in the factory. The modules meet all relevant building codes associated with conventional construction, and the final product is indistinguishable from conventional. We're very strong with Revit and BIM. We work in 3D and virtual reality tools within our design department to really coordinate effectively with the consultant team to provide really good, pre-construction services. So in Canada, the modules work to, we work to CSA A277, which is the rating for modular buildings across Canada. And then in the United States, we are third-party certified for the different states through our third-party agency, Intertech. So we can work in all US states based on that. And then, you know, in terms of the need for modular, I think we know this, but it's always good to remind us. But the driving force really is the significant skilled labor shortage, the aging construction workforce, a high demand for multifamily in urban areas, a need to build faster and more efficiently, and really a demand for higher tech and tighter tolerance buildings with higher environmental performance that can be achieved in a manufacturing facility a lot easier. And when implemented effectively, we're providing much higher quality buildings, shorter construction timelines, more predictability, and fewer impacts on the environment. When you're thinking about modular projects, you know, like I said before, the projects are indistinguishable when they're complete, but there really is a different process to consider. So, you know, in the architecture, design, and engineering point, you know, you've got to think early and really engage early in the manufacturing with the manufacturer and that modular perspective, you know, manufacturing, transportation, and logistics, and then the installation and commissioning on site. So in Canada, we execute, you know, as a full turnkey general contractor, or in the US, we would work, you know, in lockstep with the design team and the general contractor to cover all strategies for effective modular projects. So like I said, today we want to talk about modular construction for affordable housing. It's obviously a huge issue across, you know, North America. And we're going to showcase what we've done here in Canada. So affordable housing, it's a very general term. It can be interpreted differently. CMHC in Canada and HUD in the US pretty much defines it the same, where housing is defined as affordable when a household spends less than 30% of his income on shelter. So we're talking, you know, general terms, shelters, transitional housing, supportive housing, subsidized and market rate housing. What we're talking about today is what we've done is predominantly supportive housing, permanent supportive housing for the government of BC. So the BC Housing Rapid Response to Homelessness. So in 2017, the government of BC made a multi-billion-dollar 10-year commitment to address affordable housing in the province. They developed the Rapid Response to Homelessness program as one of several strategies. And the housing target was over 2,000 units using modular construction. So to start the program off, they initiated a pilot project in the city of Vancouver because of you know, they needed a solution to solve the growing homeless population.
And was modular targeted, Rhys, by Vancouver because of its speed to market?
Yeah, very much so. So the mayor of Vancouver, you know, really had an issue on his hands, looking for solutions to sort this issue out, and look to modular as a solution. So the mayor, you know, there was a lot of political will to make this work. And so they created the Vancouver Affordable Housing Agency, which was tasked to develop creative methods to leverage new housing projects. Modular was seen as the solution at the time. There were several challenges in Vancouver, and you'll notice the similarity across many of the you know, the cities in the US, particularly where you are, Ryan, in Seattle. You know, land availability, municipal approval timelines, construction timelines, and trade availability and cost certainty. So what VAHA did was they issued a design build RFP to the modular industry to develop this pilot project, which was a supportive housing project on Terminal Avenue in Vancouver. Horizon North responded and was the successful proponent, and they developed this project in working with BC Housing and VAHA. So the project was effectively temporary by design. It was on a parking lot, underutilized site in the city of Vancouver, but it was designed so that it was built to the permanent building code and could effectively be relocated in, say, 3, 5, 10, 15, depending on when it was that they wanted to relocate it. So it's effectively a permanent building, but can be relocated in the future. So they hold that asset. So it's a really good way for the city to use sites that are underutilized.
You know, yesterday, Rhys, we had a presentation about Sweden. It was a webinar, and lots of the questions that came in from the audience was exactly what you're saying. They were asking, can you relocate these? And usually it's binary. Like if it's a permanent modular construction, you can't. If it's relocatable, you can. But it's interesting you've created a solution that could be relocatable in the future.
Yeah, and a lot of development went into it, Ryan, and inherently by design, modular, can be relocated, but there's a lot of, pre-engineering, pre-design to make sure that that's thought of in the process. So Horizon North put a lot of work into that, and one of the real shining points of that program is actually a relocatable foundation system. So it's a multi-point steel relocatable foundation, and that can sit on a site, so it limited disturbance to the site. And then the modules executed on budget and within 6 months from project award to occupancy, including the permit approval and stakeholder engagement process. And it was the first project announced under the CMHC Innovation Fund. So very high profile, a great looking building, and very successful. Based on the success of that project, the city then released a program for 600 supportive housing units, which Horizon North was engaged to do, and that became part of the larger government initiative, which formed the basis of the rapid response to homelessness program. So evolving the design to change the perception of both supportive housing and modular construction in the city. The design phase 2 was the Heather Street project. So that was 78 units, all again, typically 250 square feet, self-contained units. So they've got a washroom and a kitchenette in each unit. Common amenity areas on the main level, and again on the relocatable foundation that I mentioned. Some improvements were made to the exterior design to adjust and fit seamlessly into the neighborhood that it operated in. So you can see how that design sort of improved and blended more into the neighborhood. As the program went on, we went on to design phase 3. So the VAHA and the city to continue to identify sites and applying learnings from previous projects and the next iteration was the Ash Street project. So that was a 52 unit modular housing project, again on a relocatable foundation. And it came together in less than 6 months. And this project, you can see the improvement in the exterior. The Modular Building Institute awards a distinction in 2019.
Yeah, handsome.
So as the program developed, here are some of the key points that made this program successful that can perhaps be takeaways for other cities thinking of doing this type of program. So it was a standardized modular program. A repetitive, scalable approach was developed with a proven baseline design and suite library. So standardized modules, a kit of parts, and a very detailed specifications guideline. So maintaining the standardized building layouts provided very repetitive work and economies of scale. So wherever it was going across BC, it was the same every time in our factory. This really resulted in fast-track design development phase, the consulting and municipal permitting timelines, and the construction. So typically the projects are completed in under 4 months from concept through to completion. And obviously, as I mentioned, continuous improvement has taken place over that process. The modifications to the building facade were created. That was a big, obviously allowing the functional building layout, but to express character. And then, building in the different areas with varying regional development requirements. So using butterfly roofs, roof overhangs, articulation, some siding trim details, color palettes, wall murals really gave those buildings some interesting features, but really blending into those communities. And, very importantly for modular, as you know, Ryan, an integrated design process was the key to the project success. So Horizon North is extremely engaged from the very outset, and everyone is at the table, including BC Housing, the operator, the modular company, like I said, the architect and the consultant team, and the municipal representatives. And then as the process developed, several iterative improvements were made based on the feedback and lessons learned to optimize the design, always within budget constraints, obviously. So since subsequently, Horizon North has been involved with the construction of 664 supportive housing units in the city of Vancouver. And then with the rapid response to homelessness, a further 797 more units across the province. And we're in design development and construction of many more projects to come. So this program is ongoing in BC Housing. Here's a few pictures of some other projects. These are on the permanent side. So there's a nice 5-story example there in Kamloops, BC. So the benefits, typical benefits to modular that you'll find, but faster delivery. Each project, like I mentioned, was completed with under 4 months, which is about 66% faster than conventional. Less site disruption, higher sustainability standards, improved sound ratings, which is obviously a very big deal in affordable housing in this type of project, cost certainty, and reduced project risk. BC Housing actually conducted a survey. I won't read all of this. This can be found on the BC Housing website, but a couple of key sort of points to mention is that 94% of residents remained housed at their modular supportive housing buildings 6 months after moving into their units. And 84% of survey respondents reported improvements to their overall well-being, which is huge. So if you are thinking about this kind of program, some of the issues and challenges that you might be facing, particularly is NIMBYism in the area. So challenges included stakeholder engagement. So the feedback loop with modular from one project to the next is very short, particularly when the program gets going, due to the speed of delivery. So that stakeholder engagement has to be pushed really hard and really early. Some community organizations and some of the municipal councils did not approve, and NIMBY groups tried unsuccessfully to stop the developments in court. Overall, you know, we did pretty well. Some of the strategies there for the NIMBYism side of things is that building developments and density were limited so that they were more spread throughout communities. So typically the developments were limited to 50 units each. And the other thing that Horizon North did was put a modular show suite, which was built and transported to community open house events to demonstrate the interior fit and finish. So great looking building, you know, there's this sort of stigma of modular. So we would actually ship a prototype module to the site. People can look and see how nice they are. And obviously as the program developed, more and more of these good looking buildings were going up. So that was some background on the Vancouver program and the BC Housing program. But up next for NRB and Horizon North is actually the City of Toronto as a great example. Another major North American city facing endemic create TO, and the City of Toronto has actually announced plans to build 250 new units. 110 of which will be on 2 city-owned sites in a pilot program. And NRB from the Grimsby facility has contracted to build those units. So there's a render there of that project, and that's a really exciting program and another showcase of a major city in North America doing this. So in summary, I really think there's a lot of opportunity for it to go to mainstream. Modular is nothing new, as you know, Ryan, but there are many reasons as to why, many major factors. The housing crisis, climate change, labor shortages, lots of reasons why modular is now back on the radar and really, riding a wave. And inherently, for housing to become more affordable, the supply of houses needs to increase. So we just need to build more, and factories can do that. So overall, the modular industry just needs to keep innovating, keep going.
Oh, that's great. You had mentioned wanting to share a video. Do you still want to do that, or not? Not today.
I can send you a link on that.
That'd be great, and we can put that in the YouTube video. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for presenting this, Rhys. And I've heard about this program in Vancouver. I know there were other manufacturers that also participated in it, but Horizon North was instrumental. And so, just first off, to try to get an idea of the company and kind of questions there. What of Horizon North's and NRB portfolio, how much work would you consider being sort of industrial, oil field workman camps, relocatable buildings, and how much is manufacturing for permanent modular construction?
Yeah, good question. So Horizon North obviously was originally an oil and gas company focused on the oil patch in Alberta. The manufacturing of the facilities was set up to build, workforce camps for those types of projects. But the ownership, the leadership at Horizon North really recognized that modular could, the opportunity for growth in the modular industry is huge in the multifamily, hotels, permanent modular space. So there's a very clear distinction between within the company of modular solutions and industrial services. So there's a strong focus on the growth of modular solutions within the business. So predominantly now the factories are mostly focused on affordable housing and multifamily housing and commercial projects.
No, it's a real success story, honestly, Rhys, because we've seen, say in the United States, the migration or the development of manufactured home suppliers in the U.S. Trying to transition over to permanent multifamily housing, and that can be a difficult transition. What would you attribute Horizon North's success over the years of transitioning from a relocatable workman camp type manufacturing operation into permanent construction? What has that success been attributed to, would you say?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because I think that also, large scale companies like ours are not as good at the single family residential line. What we're good at is volume and repeatability and high production levels. So we applied the learnings and the experience from building accommodation, which is effectively what those workforce camps are, and nice high quality accommodation, and utilizing that experience for essentially affordable housing in urban centers. So definitely there's a lot of different considerations with regards to building code, fire suppression, the engineering requirements. But we definitely had that experience that we could bring of building volumetric boxes for those projects. So
did the Relocatable Foundation, the temporary Relocatable Foundation situation and that technology, did that come from your prior experience with workman camps, or is that a new technology you've developed there?
So that technology was developed for the North. So it sits predominantly in Alaska and northern Canada, and it was designed to sit across the permafrost. So it acts like a spread foundation that balances over the permafrost. So it was a technology that Horizon North had used on northern projects and had experience with. So it was a really good technology that we had experience with that works for that foundation system.
Is that proprietary to your company, or are there other developers and builders using that in the North?
There's other developers. That's a different subcontractor that does the foundation systems.
Yeah. Okay. That's innovative though, and answers a lot of the questions people have about modular and the perception that it is relocatable, but for the most part, permanent modular is not. So it's exciting to see that. And in those situations, are you using a steel chassis, or are you still able to use light wood framing for those boxes?
It's a wood frame box that sits on top of the multi-point steel foundation. So within the program, pretty much over half of it is on a permanent foundation, so a concrete or whatever it is foundation. And then there was a specific requirement in Vancouver to try and utilize sites that they didn't want a permanent building on. So although the building looks permanent and operates and acts like a permanent building, it can effectively be relocated. So I think that having had conversations with different cities in California, for example, that's a very attractive option, because they have sites, the access to land is an issue. So they can use church sites, parking lots, underutilized sites that are contaminated where, the foundation can sit on top, and they can fast track, getting housing, getting people in beds is the key with that type of technology. So I think it really demonstrates Modular's flexibility in what it can offer.
Yeah. Just thinking about your company and your delivery process, how much of the supply chain are you providing? You are a modular manufacturer and supplier, but you mentioned the stakeholders. You're not doing design, or you're not doing overall project engineering. That's the job of the design team. You're not the owner or developer. That's the city or private developers. They come and want to do affordable housing. Certainly you're manufacturing. Do you do general contracting? Do you do site setting? Do you do the stitching and marrying on site? What is the scope of your services that you provide? Do you transport also?
Yeah, good question. Horizon North does everything. Provides full turnkey projects, but it's also flexible in how we operate depending on what the program is, what the project is. And I think the modular industry is growing, right? Like it's gone from sort of this startup phase, it's becoming more, working out, more and more general contractors have experience with modular, more and more design firms have experience, so there's less education. So I think the industry is developing that way. But Horizon North has really pioneered, this initiative. So they've had to, and a lot of the RFPs that come out from BC Housing are design build. So Horizon North will respond as a full, and offer a full turnkey. So we've done full turnkey hotels, but we also just do module supply. So it depends on what the project is and where it is. In the US, we're focusing predominantly on a product supply, because the US is, really moving forward with modular, and more general contractors are just looking for fabricators. Ultimately, that's what we're good at, and that's what we want to do, is fill the factories and grow the factories, because the industry needs more and more factories, more and more capable factories that can supply the need, because the need is staggering.
And I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but that's what we do on ModX, right? So we get into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah.
But there is a concern when you start supplying boxes only and don't control that full turnkey solution, that there's a quality assurance or sort of warranty question about handing it off to a general contractor at that point. I mean, you may not have an answer now, but as you go into the United States and general contractors are trying to procure boxes from you, how do you ensure that quality assurance, quality control processes that get to the job site and are assembled?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it needs the types of projects we focus on is when we can be engaged early. So we don't want to just be sent a package to go build. We want to integrate early as part of the team, even through the schematic phase. So that's the type of project that we want to be involved with. So it's very collaborative and integrated project delivery. We create division of responsibility, a scope work matrix with the general contractor, also the set company. So, like I say, more and more are becoming specialists at this type of work. Modular, some of the general contractors are hanging their hat on modular, which is great. But, where needed, Horizon North has the depth of resources to, like I say, execute a full project, which sometimes that's what the owner is looking for. They're looking for one neck to strangle. But
yeah, no. So specific to affordable housing, some questions in your experience in working there. The projects you're presenting, are these mostly competitive bid, or a lot of publicly procured projects, government projects, city projects, municipal projects have to be publicly bid? And so I'm wondering how is that handled, given the fact that there are not many modular factories, and
yeah.
Can you actually get 3 to 4 competitive bids at one time? How has that been dealt with in these projects? Do you know?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan, because the procurement process has to happen, and modular has a bit of a, the traditional procurement process doesn't normally fit for modular. So it takes something like BC Housing and the Mayor of Vancouver to say, we're going to do something different. It's them really that's stepping up, and then the modular industry has to respond, right? We have to give them viable options. So unless there's competition, it's not going to work. So the good thing in Western Canada is that there has been over the years a number of modular factories because of the oil and gas industry. So they had a healthy number of companies. So what they did, I'll talk you through how they did it. So they put out a pre-qualification initially and shortlisted 10 viable modular companies that would then be on the list. And then that list of preferred proponents, every time an RFP comes out for a particular project, those proponents are sent the RFP for a design build. So it's a design build delivery model that, because, as the modular industry develops and gets more and more sophisticated, more and more standardized designs will come so that it can just be issued. But every modular company sort of does it slightly different. So there's an opportunity right now that the modular company needs to be engaged earlier, which is good. It's effective. But I think, something that, the work that you're doing is helping to sort of standardize some of this stuff, so that as more factories grow, it all needs to grow. It all needs to be standardized.
So can they do in your experience on those projects, do you know if they were competitively sorted before design began so that you could be at the table early on through that process?
Yeah, there's a very early commitment for a project budget for sure.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And,
And I think that,
and
especially for modular, it seems to be a good way to go. Yeah.
yeah, with modular, there's so much of it controlled in the factory environment that we
Mhm.
know those costs. So really, the variable comes with what the site execution side of it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it's helpful. That's good. Regarding financing the projects, these were all city projects, or Vancouver Authority projects, projects, and so probably you may not know what the financing situation is, but it's something we're running and seeing is a barrier to using modular in construction. So I just wondered if you have any experience with that and how that's being handled to overcome, particularly for affordable housing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of sides to it. I mean, obviously, the lending on a modular project is slightly different. As you know, there's the deposit, and there's a large amount of money laid out to a factory in a different area for them to build your product. So it's totally different to how conventional lending is done. But it's kind of the same conversation. The more and more of it happening, the more lenders are getting comfortable with how that works and how that that goes. And you can sell the value of speed and the value of certainty within that. Working for Horizon North, one of the points I made earlier was that it's a publicly traded company and with large, financial resources and track record of success, which is very important when you're doing larger scale projects. So I think the more and more that the industry grows and gets credible suppliers, with bonding capacity, I think that's a big part of that equation is really, there's that risk of the modular company going under, and that's not good for the industry, for sure. And it has happened, and construction things go wrong. That's kind of normal in construction, but when it's with modular, it's kind of elevated and more, it makes the news a bit more. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I think we'll see more and more affordable housing projects using modular construction, and you've given us some really good insights into what can be expected from the perspective of a developer or a city that is trying to do an affordable housing development project. And where can people get a hold of you, Rhys, if they're interested in engaging Horizon North on their next project or getting more information?
You can email me. I can, send out my contact details. Check out Horizon North's website and LinkedIn for an update on all the projects that we do. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yep. Really helpful. Really appreciate Rhys Kane coming from and participating in the session. And just as a last question, Rhys, Horizon North suggests that the company is focused on a market in the north. How far south to the equator are you willing to go? And is there any interest in expansion into the United States in particular?
Yeah, I mean, the US is a very strong focus for us right now. Primarily, initially, it's the dollar exchange that makes us extremely competitive in
Yep.
mostly central and western US from our western facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of our name and branding, you've seen the sort of the changes and the mergers, and so watch this space is what I can say on some of that branding story and how we present ourselves in the market. But the modular industry is at a very exciting place to be right now. Horizon North is a leader and is really leading the charge. But we want the modular industry to grow. We want everyone to be successful, and we want more and more cities sort of following what we've done in Vancouver and now Toronto, and we can really help to tell that story for anyone interested. So feel free to reach out anytime.
That's great. And we have seen that Horizon North has been nothing but forthcoming and partnering with ModX in various ways. So thanks, Rhys, for your time. Appreciate it. And really hope that Horizon North continues to find success, in particular in affordable housing, because God knows in this day and era, we need more housing. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. Keep up the great work with ModX too.